Evacuation procedure. A fire drill is not expected. So if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Yorkshire Bank on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door through which you entered the room, or by the fire exits which are clearly marked and indicated by these standard fire exit signs. If you need assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to the member of staff. And please can I ask that all mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent. And I would advise you that all or part of this meeting may be recorded for future purposes. Okay. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Lloyd. Declarations of interest in addition to those printed. Are there any others? No. Okay. The minutes of the previous meeting, are they approved as a true record on page 9? Is that everybody agreeing? Okay, thank you. We have a number of public speakers on most items. I'll just read through them. On item 7, Councillor Condicor, Michelle Condicor and Councillor Golby. Item 8, Councillor Condicor, Michelle Condicor and Councillor Golby. Local Development Scheme, LDS Update, Councillor Condicor, Michelle Condicor and Councillor Golby. Item 10, Councillor Condicor. Item 11, Councillor Condicor. And item 12A, Councillor Condicor. We've not received any further notifications. Is there anyone else who is wishing to speak? Okay, I'll take that as the final list then. Because there's people speaking on nearly every item, I am going to leave the agenda and the details. So item 6 then, the Heart Service Procurement. Barry.
Thank you, Jim. Basically this report seeks permission to go out to tender, and once granted and tenders are obtained, the principal idea is to try to speed up the process to get adaptations for disabled people. That would be the primary objective. So I commend the recommendations to the Cabinet.
We have no speakers on this, so any Cabinet member wish to comment, ask any questions?
I move the recommendations, Chair.
Okay, is that seconded?
Seconded.
And is that agreed? I think you moved it, so Neil seconded it.
Yeah.
Are we all in favour of that?
We are, yes.
Yep, no dissenting voices there. Thank you, Belle. We then move to item 7. I'm just signing the minutes. Item 7, Councillor Shepherd.
This report is a supplementary report of the draft general fund and HR budget 1920 report, so considered as an extra agenda item of this meeting. It seeks approval to cease the current free garden waste collection service for properties phased green bin from the 31st of January 2019 and to introduce an opt-in chargeable garden waste service from the 1st of February 2019 for all garden waste bins collected from our property. The curbside collection of garden waste is a discretionary service that we aren't required to provide by law, but one that we choose to provide. We are allowed to charge for delivering discretionary services such as collecting garden waste. Given all our very challenging financial position for 1920 and 2021, the Borough Council is no longer able to afford to provide a free curbside garden waste collection service. Information from the LGA shows that 61% of garden waste curbside collection schemes run by councils in England are charged for. BBC research this summer found that the average yearly charge for garden waste collection across England was £42.40 a year. Locally, Rugby, Tamworth, Litchfield and Hinkley and Bosworth councils charge for all their garden waste bins that are collected. The proposal in this report is for the Borough Council to charge £40 per bin per year. Instead of introducing a charge, the Borough Council could choose to cease the service completely. However, this would take a well-used and long-established service away from all the residents, giving no customer choice whatsoever. While introducing an opt-in charge for collecting garden waste bins will not be popular, it does give households a choice as to whether they wish to continue to receive the service. The recommendations for Cabinet to consider are set out in paragraphs 2.1 to 2.5 of the report on page 24 of the Cabinet papers. And in moving the recommendations, I need to point out we are in this position because of the government's ongoing austerity, and for local authorities, austerity is not ended not this year or next year. And I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. We do have 3 speakers on this. First of all, Councillor Compulsory.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I sent all the councillors an email about this ahead of time. Clearly, we don't want to be here, and clearly the driver for this is the government's cut to council funding. Also, the best thing to do is to compost at home, but that is not practical for lots of people, and lots of people haven't got in the habit of doing that. So the recycling scheme and the composting scheme are really, really important. We are a poor borough in comparison to a lot of the shire councils. We had this figure of £42 mentioned for the average around the country. These are shire counties, usually, the districts around the country in large affluent areas, rural areas. For the Neaton and Bedworth, we need to be looking as low a charge as possible. And we're talking about how many people use the service. The officers reckon 13,000 will use the service at £40. Clearly, a cheaper service, looking at £20 per bin, we would be looking at considerably more people still being able to use the service. Probably, if you look at Hinckley, something around 60% would still use the service at £20. So it's a massive loss to actually go right at the top of the scale. And if you look at the income, £20 would raise us £450,000 in income. £40 raises us £500,000. So for going such a high charge, you basically destroy demand for the service. Going in at the very bottom, and £20 would just be slightly cheaper than the 22, so it would be the cheapest garden waste collection in the country, just slightly, and it would actually still be a service which around 62% of the people in the households with gardens would use. It is far better to come in low, have a service that is still used by 2/3 of the population rather than 1/3 of the population, and actually not have as much catastrophic impact in terms of fly tipping, people putting the waste in the green bin, people burning the waste. There's all sorts of problems we'll have due to this charge. So as lower charges we can get away with, the better. And I've emailed my figures to Brent and the county council officers, and the county council have come back and said my calculations are plausible and right. I haven't had a comment back from Brent, but for £450,000 we could charge the lowest figure. And it comes right back to what we did with car parking. It's not that prices never rise and you never do things, but you think about how far you charge, what's the elasticity. And Hinckley is a good example. Yeah, in here it says £24 is their charge. They get a 60% take-up. I would like our service still to be used by as many people as possible, which is why I want this charge, if it has to be introduced, to be as low as possible, because that would have the best environmental outcome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Confer. Are there any points of clarification?
No.
Can I thank you for your comments? Can I thank you for sending your email yesterday? Thank you. Michelle Confer.
I don't need to add an awful lot because Keith has covered quite a lot of it. I just wanted to mention about sort of trying to see the big picture. I know we're in a horrible situation with the finances and things, but I did draw attention to the fact that the council did sign the Nottingham Declaration on Climate Change, and actually composting and what have you is all part of this agenda and things. We do not want people just burning it, and I fear a lot of people will burn things. I also, I read in the paperwork about thinking the uptake would be 37.5%, but I really don't think it would be as high as that. I mean, we compost most things, so for about 3 times a year that we put our green bin out and things, and I'm sure we're not alone in that, we just wouldn't pay that amount. The other things that don't seem to have been mentioned is education. Have you spoken to county? Have composting workshops been sort of put in to tie in at the same time as this, would be introduced? And looking at the comments, the graphs and things for item 8, in the appendix there, obviously refuse collection and recycling were the two things that scored the highest, people wanting to have. And I think most people would actually think that that was part of those two things, that it is actually a form of recycling, which it is. So I think there needs to be an awful lot of education to try and get people to compost at home. I mean, if I dare to put anything in the green bin, you're throwing away good nutrients from our garden and things, So, it is trying to get that message across, which is not an easy message, and a lot of people just, don't want to know. But I would like, you to really major on that and the reasons for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cooper, any points of clarification? No. Thank you very much. Councillor Goldman.
I'd just like to point out something before we start that doesn't seem to have been mentioned anywhere in this, is it's not just green waste that these bins house, it actually houses food waste as well. Nowhere is that mentioned. That in itself could create a bit of an issue for families on lower incomes, because they use the food waste bin to create space in the black bin. And if they've got large families, for example, if you're on lower incomes, they're not going to be able to afford £40 per bin. There's been no equality impact assessment on this at all. We've had that confirmed. So you don't even know the take-up. You don't know who's going to be able to afford this and who isn't. Again, people on fixed incomes or low incomes, if it's a choice between paying £40 for a bin and £40 for putting food on the table or school shoes for their kids, they're going to go with the school shoes. I can tell you that straight away. There is an assumption that there are going to be people who don't have gardens that don't want the bin. However, I refer back to my earlier point of it's not just green waste that goes in this bin, it's food waste as well. There are some quite responsible people that do use the green bins for food waste recycling, regardless of whether they've got a garden or not. And that is going to impact on those people because they are less likely to be affluent because they'll be living in areas, for example, terraced housing, not necessarily an affluent area. Those are the people that this is going to affect. So I don't really think it's been looked at in the whole with everybody in mind. You think that it's just the people that with the gardens that are going to take this up. Well, it's not, because it actually has a negative impact on other people. Like I said before, fixed incomes, pensioners, they're quite likely to be gardeners. They're not going to have 40 quid to spend on a bin. And it's funny that we're using the BBC to now create council policy. I'm not sure why we're referring to the BBC in anything. So the other thing which is glaringly obvious is the Labour group explicitly promised not to charge the green bins in their election campaign. You actually explicitly said that, and I pulled this off one of the cabinet members' Twitter feed. There's been a lot of them deleted, but there's still the odd one out there, and it says, protecting free garden waste collections and making sure our refuse collection is good value for money. Hardly. So that was an election promise that has been absolutely decimated with this, because the people who are least likely to be able to afford this would have possibly have read that and now feel quite hard done by, I would suggest.
Thank you, Councillor Goldie. Any points of clarification?
No.
No, thank you very much for your comments. Councillor Shepherd, anything you wish to add?
Just in terms of the education, obviously that's very high on our priority. Anyway, we do it through all our recycling facilities, and yes, it will be looked at as part of any proposals in terms of green waste.
Councillor Lee.
In terms of the composting arrangements, it was when I was working, because it was at Stockyford Community Centre, the council ran courses and actually gave away composting bins, because it was quite funny watching people going up the road looking like a Dalek, because the only way to carry them was got inside of it. And they also got a free hanging basket. So it's not that long ago, or maybe time flies when you get older, but it's not that long ago when it was tried, and it didn't appear to work. So whilst I accept what's being said, I'm not sure that the take-up of composting would be very successful in order to save these things. In terms of food waste, the point's well made. I don't think people are that daft, to be honest. They'll still be putting food waste in their recycling bins.
Thank you, Councillor London. I'm just noting an article actually in the Local Government Association First magazine that hit this week or last week. Councillor Martin Tent, who happens to be a Conservative member, is quoted in this article and says quite clearly that councils up and down the country have been hit by Chinese restrictions on imports of mixed paper and certain types of plastic over the last year, a snapshot poll that the LGA had undertaken, and that there are huge financial pressures on councils up and down the country as a result of this. It isn't just Nuneaton and Bedworth. And I think it is legitimate for the Cabinet member to quote that 60% of authorities, I think I'm right in that, Councillor Shepherd, are currently having to look at a difficult decision to actually charge for green waste. And it is a difficult decision, but leadership is about making decisions. And I'm sure members of the public will have noted that Councillor Condacor has come up with an alternative proposal this evening. I haven't received an alternative proposal from the Conservative group, which I think is actually showing a lack of potential leadership.
Yeah.
The recommendation is in front of us. It has been moved by the Cabinet members. Somebody going to second?
I'll second it.
Is that agreed?
It is agreed.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Moving on then to item 8, which is actually the draft general fund and HRA budgets 2019-20. This report presents Cabinet with the draft general fund budget 2019-20 and an update on the housing revenue account budget setting process for 19-20. Section 3 gives an overview of the budget consultation exercise that was carried out through August and September, and an analysis of results are shown at Appendix A. Section 4 sets out the background to the 1920 budget process, including assumptions that have been made on funding, pay and price inflation, as well as the council tax itself. The council is facing a number of spend pressures for 1920, and these are shown at Appendix B. After taking all of this into account, the forecast deficit for 1920 is estimated to be £970,000, and that is summarised at table 4.16. In order to achieve a balanced budget for next year, a number of savings are presented to Cabinet for approval, and these are shown at 4.17. This includes the additional income anticipated from introducing a green waste charge. Section 7 of the report updates Cabinet on the draft budget process for the HRA 1920 and the work that has been carried out on the 30-year business plan. This will be presented to a future Cabinet for approval and will take into account the impact of the recently announced changes to the HRA borrowing cap and high-value forwards. The recommendations are printed at Section 2 of the report. I have 3 speakers on this. Firstly, Councillor Condon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm most disappointed we don't consider alternatives and just roll ahead with the green waste bin. And I do hope we go down this list. The previous one's for calling, so we will hopefully call in the green waste. But this list isn't for calling. And there's obviously lots of things on this list which should be looked at in detail Start with spending pressures. £25,000 for the bistro service. We're trying to take £40 from people to get rid of their garden waste across the borough, affecting 35,000 people, and yet we're still wasting money on a bistro that should actually be run by a private sector. Just like in the museum, a bistro is the sort of thing where an entrepreneur can run it far better than a council. So I'm shocked that we're still trying to run a food outlet in the Civic Hall and burning money on it. It should be a profit centre, not a waste of money. One of your biggest pressures is recycling. That is an almighty mess at the moment, and not cooperating with the council makes things worse. I've been a long advocate that we actually have a joint waste authority for Coventry, Warwickshire, or just Warwickshire, so that we don't have 6 or 7 waste authorities. Our recycling contracts and all this stuff is so expensive because everyone is doing something slightly different, and we haven't got the economies of scale. I reckon we will save £2 million across Warwickshire if we actually merge together all our waste and recycling. And with this spending pressure here, and this same spending pressure in Warwick and Stratford, and particularly North Warwickshire, which is a very small council, the way we should be going is through shared services, joint waste authority, whatever, so that we take out the management costs and the contracting costs from our recycling. Just as many people on the streets picking up the stuff, but actually get rid of a lot of the back end overhead. Yet it is astronomical having 6 waste authorities in Warwickshire. Yet there are savings we can make, or the county can make, that aren't made because we're not working together. And we've just wrecked the Warwickshire Waste Partnership, which is supposed to be working together to get to higher standards and higher recycling and better services for the public by pushing ahead with garden waste charges. We're going backwards when we should be going forwards on waste. And what this council does is planning waste bits of town centre. We should be, for one of our biggest spending items, getting things to work better. And then I could go on, I'm sure the people will, about the Civic Hall, parking charges, whatever. Yeah, this should have gone to a scrutiny committee so we could have had time to actually go through these items and ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any points of clarification?
Councillor Cullen, the figures you mentioned, you do know that that came from a report to the Waste Partnership, and it was all based on unitary authorities in Wales, and the Waste Partnership agreed at that point in time that they would not go down that route simply because it was not a feasible option. So joining together, there was no council, when I was there was no council actually in favour of doing that.
I do know an awful lot about waste. I've been
Sorry, the question was, are you aware of that decision that the Warwickshire County Council Waste Partnership?
Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
an
That's
expert
all,
on the subject, and I believe the officers do not want to get rid of their jobs by having a shared service. The £2 million saving is a real potential saving, and whether it's 1.5 million or 2.5, having a shared service for waste is a really sensible thing to do, and there is a decision from the districts not to do it. It is not a decision the public would support.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor. Michelle.
Thank you. Well, the first thing I will mention is that there are 2 things which immediately, instantly can save us a load of money, and that is get rid of the climbing wall, so we haven't got the running costs, and we try and sell it to actually raise some money and be done with that. It was a big, big mistake. I've spoken about it ad infinitum, but I still can't believe that, and it's not even mentioned as saving. And also getting rid of the civic car. In this day and age, there is no reason for having mayor driven round in a fancy car or whatever amazing things. There's no reason why they can't drive themselves around, or the partner and things. So I'm very disappointed that those 2 bits aren't in there. In terms of other things, a bit concerned, reductions in ground maintenance works. That is probably the biggest complaints thing you get, maybe with bin collections and things. So cutting it back even more just doesn't sit well with me. I know it's terribly difficult. I understand that, trying to balance the budget and things, but you know, these are just my views. I'm also a bit concerned about this reduced street cleaning service by 2 posts. Now, yes, I'm sure money could be saved. And one of the things I said, it just seems to be completely unbalanced. I've just had last week put in a complaint regarding a street cleansing matter that I have reported, and 3 months later it's still not done. And this is on a big road. However, our little cul-de-sac regularly seems to have a road sweeper come round it. I know that because it's always in the morning and I can hear the noise, and I always peer out to see what's going on, and oh, there's the road sweeper. I never see any stuff in our cul-de-sac that needs sweeping up. I don't know how often it comes. I don't make a note, but I know it is quite regular. And so there needs to be a serious look at what is done. Maybe you can reduce street cleansing team by 2 posts and things, but just do have a look at things. This externalising the neat market, why don't you just use the term privatise the running of the market? Because I hate all these terms anyway, but everyone then would know what I mean. I don't know, maybe it would work. I don't know. Is this 18,000, it just says review options to externalise. So is that 18,000 that's going to cost to actually just look at the option, at the thing? I don't know. Another thing is the voluntary sector. That would need, reductions in that would need to be looked at very carefully, because with all the cuts, more and more is being pushed into the voluntary sector, so they do need to.
I'm sorry to interrupt, I don't normally do that, but I have to be there. Are there any points of clarification? Can I thank you very much for your comments? Councillor Goldberg.
Thank you very much. Just wanting to go through a couple of things on this, on 4.7, where we're talking about the income from Queen's Road. The Poundland deal, I have seen it reported in other areas that costs us £250,000 a year from reserves. I'm not sure if that's wholly accurate or not. I think the whole thing that I'm trying to get at here is we haven't focused on waste, and that is a significant sum of money if it's correct. That will be, well, over the last 2 years you're looking at £500,000. And then you talk about the same again with the car parking, that's another 250,000 roughly a year loss. So that's in 2 years, that's £1 million. That is a not insignificant sum that's basically that we could have had that we haven't got. So when we talk about tightening our belts, we need to put down on the waste as well. The civic car was something that was brought up. I've actually got a spreadsheet that I've been going through, and I'm waiting for some information back from Simone, but she's not had a lot of time to get it back to me yet. So that's going to be reviewed once I get the information back. But the civic car is roughly about £25,000 a year on an asset that we don't own. Again, over the last 2 years, that's £50,000. I think when we're talking about belt tightening, we do really need to look at things like that. The review of the market is something that I wanted to pick up on as well. £18,000. However, we don't know what we're going to do. There's nothing to say how it's going to be externalised, what the view is, what do we want from this, how are we going to achieve the financial savings and the £18,000. There's literally nothing. It's a finger in the air job. You can't run a budget on a finger in the air. So I've been interested to find out more about that, because that actually directly affects people's livelihoods, and these are people who I talk to regularly because I do use the market in both Nuneaton and Bedworth. And they stand out there in all kinds of weather, and this is their, some of them, it's their sole income. And we need to do things right by them as well. So it's not just about us, it's about keeping the market viable for people who actually, it is their income, it is their livelihood, and they have stood out there for years and years and years, some of them. They're a bit concerned. What does it mean for them? How is it going to change for them? Do they know this? Does anybody speak to them about it?
Thank you very much, Councillor Bobby. Any further clarification? Thank you very much for your comments. Any more? I'd like to read something, if I can, from Algae Futures that talks about whether this authority is indeed valued for money or not. Overall, Nuneaton and Bedworth's unit costs are 18.9% lower than the nearest neighbour average. Compared nationally, Nuneaton and Bedworth's unit costs are 18% below average. I could go on. This is a council efficiently run, and we are with very, very small services. In terms of, it was mentioned about the shop and whether we're losing income on that. Would we rather have a large retail unit empty with no business rates coming in? I think that doesn't make any financial common sense at all to me. I meet on a regular basis with market traders, the chairman of the Market Federation, and I visited lots and lots of market traders on a regular basis, both those in Bedworth, which is an indoor market, and those in Nuneaton. We are very keen to work with our market traders. They add a vibrancy to our town centres that we value, and it's important we work with them. We have lots and lots of shared services. I'm sure Councillor Condacor is well aware that there are many services we do in conjunction with other local authorities where that is going to benefit people in Nuneaton and Bedworth. We are left in a very, very difficult decision, and a position that wasn't improved significantly by the Chancellor's budget this week. And I recall Lord Porter is the chairman of the LGA, he's a Conservative councillor, actually quoted yesterday as saying, local government in England continues to face significant funding gaps and rising demand for adult social care, children's services and homelessness support. That will continue to threaten other services our communities rely on, like running libraries, cleaning streets and maintaining park spaces. Councils also continue to face huge uncertainty about how they will pay for local services into the next decade and beyond. They're not my words, they're the words of the Conservative Lord Porter, who is the chairman of the LGA. So we should not pretend that local councils face an easy time at the moment. It is very tight, it is very difficult, and we are trying to make the best of the assets we have. We have lots of columns here, and I think Michelle Condacor referred to the voluntary sector and the need to really be careful. We will undertake some consultation and some detailed decisions in regard to that. That will go on, and I'm sure that Dawn Dawson, who's here from the communities angle, will ensure that that is carried out. In regard to the climbing wall, I understand we have more favourable arrangements now, and I think we need to get some details out into the public arena in regard to that, because my understanding is, I'm going to actually ask Philip, are we in a position now where we get something back from the climbing wall?
We have a contract now which delivers the climbing tower out in the public domain, but the cost is significantly reduced as a result of that. So we don't get an income back as such, but the actual spend is significantly lower.
So I think, quite rightly, I think the community needs to know about those reducing costs, and we will endeavour to get something out into the community as soon as we possibly can. I'm trying to cover everything that people have mentioned here. I've probably missed some, but I also want to say on behalf of Cabinet that we did undertake a consultation in regard to the budget this year, and senior directors and elected members actually did stand out in both town centres undergoing this consultation, and we did get responses from several people, and we're really grateful for that. I would like to see us really increase the numbers of people that actually felt able to take part in that consultation when we do it again next year. I think we really need to give an even bigger push. But I think some of the things people have said as a result of that consultation are actually reflected in both this report here today and the previous report in regard to green waste, where one of the services that people were prepared to pay a little bit more for was green waste. I have no other comments in regard to this. I think I've shared the serious financial pressures facing local councils. Austerity is not over. I hope in December perhaps we will hear a big and loud that austerity is over. But at this moment in time I don't see that. I see this council struggling like many up and down the country, including Northamptonshire, which is a Conservative controlled council, really struggling. We are doing the best we can, and I'd like to pay tribute to all our hard-working members of staff who are making sure that we provide effective and efficient services. So I'll move the recommendations as printed. Any dissenting voices from the
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving then to the next item, which is item 10, Camp Hill. I'll get to it.
Nine.
Well, you see, I do apologise. Sorry, Neil. Councillor Phillips.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. The purpose of this report is for the approval and publishing of the local development scheme. Under planning legislation, each local authority is required to publish a local development scheme which identifies the development plan documents and area action plans it proposes to prepare over a 3-year period. For completeness, the document also includes the other areas of policy work. A revised local development scheme is attached and circulated as an addendum to reflect the extended consultation period that occurred for the main modifications. Section 4 of the report sets out the content of the local development scheme, which reflects the local plan. The recommendation, Chair, is for approval for publication of the local development scheme.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillips. We've got 3 speakers on this. I've got Councillor Conway.
Right, thank you, Chair. Starting at table 1, which is on page 6 or 7, it seems to have 2 page numbers in the revised version. This is the borough plan timetable. The very first version of this had an adoption date of July 2010. The adoption date now is April 2019, almost 9 years late. I think the public is owed a big apology for this, and I think we need to learn lessons from this as to how not to do a plan, because something running 9 years late, even by local government standards, is absolutely appalling, and there's no certainty next year whether this plan will get adopted. Turning over the next couple of pages, it's got all the other plans, and looking on page 8/9, which is table 5, there's a vast number of other plans that we're not even making progress on until we've got that borough plan approved or rejected. And this contains a lot of the really important stuff. I said years ago we should have forgotten the borough plan and had supplementary planning guidance on these various areas. Because there's air quality in here, there's affordable housing in here. This is all the useful stuff, rather than trashing the countryside for some ridiculous numbers of housing. And this stuff is getting later and later. And then going over a couple more pages, we right near the back of the document have table 8, which is the risks associated with the plan. And you can see a catalogue of how not to do things. And all these risks over the last 13 years, all happening. Yeah, we've had meetings disrupted, we've had capacity issues, we've had a lack of internal expertise. Basically, everything that can go wrong with a plan has gone wrong or is going wrong. And if you look at the bottom of the list, it's got legal challenges and soundness. And the way we're finding out this plan has been put through, not on evidence, but on the wishes of various people to have a plan in this format. We can see the chances of a legal challenge are getting higher and higher every day. And we can see this was never a sound plan because it was never based on evidence. The consultations we conducted time and time again were not fair consultations because what we suggested never went in the plan and the development targets were never properly discussed. I say this is the sorriest part of the Council's unachievements over the last few years, and particularly for the continued delay in the borough plan and getting to the point we can scrap it. I think the Council should apologise. We've had the Hawkesbury delay and we've had the formatting delay just recently. But we've had delay after delay after delay. Thank you, Chair.
Any points of clarification?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Connell. Michelle
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was also going to raise that, I mean, the timescales are just absolutely ridiculous. And even the things that are ongoing now. So we've got the Gypsy and Traveller site allocation, commenced February 2014, adoption September 2020. So that's 6.5 years. And that is on the assumption that the examination doesn't raise, issues, which obviously the main borough plan examination did raise issues and things. So we're looking at, ridiculous timescales. I'm particularly concerned about the community infrastructure levy. I'll just call it SIL. A lot easier to get my word out. Again, commencement February 2013, adoption, if all goes smoothly, April 2020. And I've seen on loads of planning applications that have gone, oh no, you can't have that because it's not SIL compliant. And, as a member of the public, it's very, very frustrating, I think, because there was, I have responded to an initial consultation about SIL, and it just seems to have gone absolutely nowhere. With the consultation on the preliminary draft charging schedule, 2015, and then preparation of the draft charging schedule 2019. How has that taken 4 years, give or take, depending on the months you're looking at? In terms of the supplementary planning documents, again, a lot of gobbledygook here. What on earth is transport demand management matters supplementary planning document? Because that means absolutely nothing to me. Is it about things that I would like cycling and the... I have no idea. And back in 2012, as part of the Cycle Forum, I questioned about having cycle parking guidance. Oh no, you can't have that, that will be in the new borough plan. We're 2018 and we still haven't got it. And looking at this supplementary planning document list, it's not even down as being one that's in preparation, although I have been told that it is. So is that part of this transport demand management matters? It's not in language that we can understand, so please don't use all these stupid abbreviations without at least having a glossary of what they actually mean. Somewhere on the other thing there was NNDR, I think, I know it's about non-domestic rates, but what's the other N? I don't know. I shouldn't have to keep going and having to Google, say, what the hell's this bit mean? And so please put it in language that the public can actually understand.
Thank you. Any points of clarification?
No, Chair.
And Councillor Gordon.
Thank you very much. Councillor Connor actually covered quite a lot of what I was going to say. I picked up something on gypsum travel site allocations on 3.4, where it says examination, your timescale is November 2019 to August 2019. Is that backwards, or should that be a different date? I'm not entirely sure, but I think that probably needs amending. The gypsum travel site allocations, and I know this has been talked about quite a lot recently about how people don't want them in their backyard, but we did have a potential site on the Stony Road pies. It's logged with the borough plan, but it was deemed unsuitable because there wasn't enough space. There's land actually abutting that that's come up for sale, so it might be something that is worth looking at to actually extend that plot. It could be something that I have brought it to the attention of people here. So if we were willing to put a gypsum traveller site down there before, and the only reason we've stopped is because it's not big enough, the land next to it is now available, we could make it big enough, we could have a potential gypsum traveller site there. It is worth looking into. I would have preferred this in colour. I know we're on cutbacks and everything, but the risk register at the back in black and white, no good for my eyes. Really, really no good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As I say, Council Planning Code did cover quite a lot of stuff that I wanted to say. Still, I believe you can't actually have unless you've got an adopted for a plan. So that's why we're not self-compliant. That was my understanding. That's everything.
Thank you. Any points of clarification?
No points of clarification, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Welcome. Councillor Phillips, anything you want to...
Yes, I could understand some of the comments that are made. However, because the plan is at examination, that's where we are now, not where we were 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. It is examination now, and we need to move forward. And as Councillor Golby says, it's very, very interesting. There are interesting things that need planning for that will sit under the local plan if it's found sound at examination. Right? I disagree with Keith that it was evidence-based. You know, the inspector hasn't come back and told us that it's not evidence-based, so I would tend to believe the government planning inspector rather than political comments or opinions. Town centre development underpins the local plan. Gypsy and traveller sites underpins the local plan, although we haven't had anybody come forward, not that I know of, even since 2015, offering up the land for gypsy and traveller sites. The sill, obviously, is very important, but as pointed out by Catherine, we need to have a borough plan in place to be able to forward the sill allocations, which is very important for infrastructure and development of any future housing planning. What I am pleased to see, and no doubt councillors will hold our feet to the fire, as they have done over the years, is the fact that there are consultation opportunities for the public in these plans. I also reaffirm my offer that I made in May to Conservative councillors. Made the offer.
I'm waiting for the email.
I made it at full council.
I asked you to email me. You never did.
There's always an answer.
I want it in writing. Can I say we don't want discussion? Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
But the offer was made to meet with the Conservatives to discuss the views of working together as a working party. It hasn't happened for various reasons. But going back to the recommendation, it's for approval for the publication. It is legislation for each authority to do this. And I recommend that we do.
Seconded.
Can I just say one thing, because I I absolutely agree that when we have acronyms, it does take you a little while to flip back through quite a lengthy report to find out what they are. I have a lot of sympathy, Michelle. I think on most occasions the acronyms are actually spelt out what they are. With planning, it is very, very technical, and I think it is very easy for us to slip into that sort of language. But I think it's a valid point for members of the public actually, in order to really take part in it to the full extent. We need to check occasionally. So can I ask the portfolio if we can do a little bit more on that? I think it would be helpful. Any other comments? Are we all in agreement with the recommendations that Neil and Barry said?
Yeah.
We are now on to item 10. Apologies for trying to move over item 9. This report updates Cabinet on progress towards the Camp Hill regeneration progress and to refresh the authority for making of a compulsory purchase order pursuant to the relevant sections of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. This is the last phase of the Camp Hill regeneration scheme. Section 3 of the report outlines the background to the scheme and this specific phase. Section 5 outlines the current delivery arrangements. Section 6 outlines the additional considerations and in particular the changes to government guidance which came into effect in February this year. Of particular importance are the human rights considerations which started at paragraph 6.4 of the report. The Quality Act considerations are at paragraph 6.21 of the report, and an impact assessment is appended to the report at Appendix B. The draft statement of reasons is at page 69 to 92 of the agenda. The proposed compulsory purchase order map is at page 93 of the agenda. The draft compulsory purchase order starts at page 94 and ends on page 165 of the agenda. The recommendations are set out in section 2. I'm sure everyone can read those. And the final recommendation is to appropriate the land pursuant of section 122 of the Local Government Act 1972 to be held for planning purposes under Part 9 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. As I said, planning and legal matters have lots of rules and letters. We do have a speaker on this. Councillor Condocker.
Thank you very much, Chair. I go through Camp Hill occasionally, a couple of times a year, cycle through on different routes, quite often go along the bottom area, sometimes go from top to bottom. It is really noticeable how some of it has been done. We've got this massive gap waiting for the last few demolitions, and we have this little bit between that needs finishing off. Unfortunately, and I've been on planning in the past when some of these applications have gone through, the last phases of Camp Hill will have no affordable housing. This is really, really depressing that we've actually done all this work, we're actually compulsory purchasing houses, turfing these people out, and we're actually making developers lots of profit and not getting that social dividend on the last few stages. And a lot, if you look at the report, has been changed by land values. We should have been focusing in the borough on this sort of regeneration project. It started around 2000, and now we keep giving permission to build on greenfield sites. And I know you might think I'm straying off the subject, but it's actually building on the countryside, particularly places like Galley Common, that's undermining the market to actually finish Camp Hill off. And I do hope a rule has been put over the opportunity to actually not carry on as we are, particularly with the change in government borrowing allowance from the budget, and actually look at finishing part of Camp Hill off ourselves, or at least a sub-phase of it, so we can actually have some affordable housing on the last phase, because it isn't working. Yeah, this will go slower and slower as the housing market slows. The development in places like Galley Common on greenfield sites will be more attractive for the market housing. And I'm desperately trying to get a railway station built at Stocking Forward to actually lift the area up and actually add to land values. And that is getting further and further back. Yeah, I really, really want this project finished, but I don't want it to miss the social opportunities to improve the area. And I do think we need to look, particularly with the items of money at risk, if this stalls and we end up not quite finishing it for the next 15 years, it'll be very disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any thoughts of clarification? Thank you for your comments, Mr. England. Any comments from the elected members?
When this project started, Chair, and it was a long time ago, I think the revitalisation of Campbell has been tremendous. You know, we've worked with the bases over the years. My only disappointment really is the community centres and that have suffered and they haven't taken off because of Warwickshire County Council puts, you know, chest centre, etc. So they're missing out from that point of view. But I drive around Campbell and sometimes I go through it almost every day. And it's just completely transformed from where it was when this European money came and given it to, it was European, Philip, wasn't it?
I wasn't
Looked at me.
I think certainly from Advantage West Midlands.
Yeah, I believe it was. But I may be wrong again and I hate to mislead people. But yes, carry on. I don't think the third phase will stall. You know, it isn't going to happen overnight. Compulsory purchase orders are never easy, they take time. But I'm pleased that the developers are still going to go ahead and complete.
I have to say I visit Camp Hill a lot more than 2 times a year as councillor from Dartford, both driving around Camp Hill and indeed walking around Camp Hill, and it has transformed colossally. I can remember being in the very first meeting when we agreed the Camp Hill regeneration project. Gosh, we're going back to the late 90s from recollection. I'm sure it was that long ago. And we had to make a really potentially difficult decision to make some massive improvement to Camp Hill. And I think anyone who knew Camp Hill then and has seen it now will notice that there have been real improvements. And I'm pleased that we're actually now going to be starting to tackle perhaps what is the most in need properties in terms of dealing with those. So I really am very happy to move the recommendations as printed. I think it shows real vision for that area from a council 20 odd years ago. Is anyone happy to second it?
I'll second that.
And are we all agreed? Thank you. We move then on to item 11, which is quite similarly in our agenda actually. It's on page 169, and over to Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. This is quite an exciting time, really, with this. I know that the modular build efforts have been around for some years, but it's only recently come up as a plan of trying to fill spaces and land quite quickly in terms of how we do it. And I have to report this authority is currently in the lead across the country. Our information is that we are well in the lead, and all of a sudden some other people are starting to play catch up, and they will be needing our expertise or be looking for our expertise, and hopefully we can charge them for it. It won't be a fortune, won't get us out of the trouble that we're in with the government, but at least it will be some sort of income because of what's going on in terms of this. And we've been given the investment partner status by Homes England, and that demonstrates the Council's robust approach to the planning and delivery of the financial management of the whole thing. So I'm quite pleased to report that we are in that situation, and we are in a position to use the method of construction to build properties quicker than the normal process. Currently, what we've done we built 4 trial units in Ashington Road in Bedworth, and that was a massive success as far as we're concerned. But the project was delayed because the utility company's not been able to get on site, so it put the houses up in 10 weeks and have to wait another 10 weeks for the utility companies to get their work done. So where we could have had people in quicker, they had to wait a little bit longer. The fact that we're in the position that we are in front of everybody else, does give me a bit of a problem, because the Metropolitan Councils are now looking at this, and of course they've got far, far more resources than we have, and they may well start to pick up on this, and there's not that many suppliers in the country, and that may give us a delay in the future. But hopefully, because we're where we are, we can start, providing this goes through, we can start to look at building these properties and giving people homes. And with your permission, Chair, I would like to thank our staff for what they've done, and really commend them for the work they've done and for the position that they've put us in the national scene. We are leading, and that is a star for us, irrespective of there's going to be knockers. I know there's going to be people who want to pull it up and want to pull things through it, and just can't accept that this borough is a good place to be, and is well run and well affected and well positioned. For some reason they just don't like that position. It doesn't fit the profile that they have. But I do. I think the officers have done a magnificent job on this and put us where we are, and hopefully we are going to get some housing built. It's not going to take over the list, the housing list. We're still going to have lots of people on that, but we will be biting into it. The only drawback at the moment, the government has got rid of the higher value voids. They also got rid of the borrowing cap, which is going to be helpful. What they haven't got rid of is a right to buy. But hopefully we'll be able to build more than we actually sell. So there might be a plus, but if we don't, it's not our fault. We have tried, and we are still providing homes for people at affordable rents. So I will move the proposal that we crack on with this as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Longer. Councillor Condoc.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very disappointed that people say that people knock the council all the time. Housing is one of the areas I think the council has done quite well at, and you remember at council meetings over the last 3 or 4 years, I've actually congratulated the housing department as being one of the bits of the council that actually does better than average for the council, and I've actually recommended that the housing department actually audits other departments' business plans for this council, because I have such confidence that the management of that has been, I think partly because we do these sort of projects, there's been a lot more Gantt chart and project management based than some of the other parts of the council. I watched Grand Design, so I've seen modular houses years and years ago, and it is something that's coming to its time. I'm really pleased that we're actually getting a framework in place to build these, and as I mentioned on the previous thing, we should be looking at where developers will take a ridiculous long while to finish things. Can we take a bit of that, a corner of those plots back to actually put some modular houses down? Yeah, if the Camp Hill or one of the commercial developments is going to take 10 years to build out a particular site, can we just grab 1 year's worth of that and build affordable modular houses quickly for the people who need it? This is what we should be doing. The only question I've got, single supplier framework, can we do another one then if, I'm not sure the mechanisms of single supplier frameworks. I'm used to the big ones where you have a panel of 4 suppliers or whatever for road maintenance or whatever. I'm not sure if the single supplier does anything to us to prevent us or tie us, but apart from that, it seems really good news.
Thank you very much, Councillor Condoc. Any That's clarification. Thank you for your comment. Do you want to come back, Councillor?
Yes, Chair. We have to look at land availability, and in terms of what you're saying, suggesting about Camp Hill, it depends if that land is available, if it's affordable. I mean, there's no point in trying to buy that back if it's not going to be constructed enough to be affordable. So there's lots of things to have to take into consideration with that. We are looking at land accumulation in order to push ahead with this if we get this through, and from there we will be producing homes. It's a nice idea if we could get stuff back, but I'm not exactly sure what the complications of that would be, or whether we could do it. In terms of the single supplier issues on here, they're not tied. It means a single supplier of how many. There's not many suppliers in the country, so we could do it with 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to be tied into just single one. So it could be 1, 2 or 3 at each time.
Thank you. I'd echo London's comments to the Housing Department. I think they've done some tremendous work over the last few years. We have some brand new council houses in various areas of the borough, both those that we have personally overseen the building of, modular houses and council houses that we've acquired, and that is very good. But I have to say equally, there's been investment in the existing stock to try and bring that up to a better standard as well. And I think there is a balance, because there are those who need homes and there are those that actually would like improvements to their property. And I'm really pleased that Councillor London over the next few months will be looking hard at that 30-year business plan, I'm sure, refreshing that as per the previous report. So Councillor Longden, you've moved the recommendations. Happy to second that, so. Thank you. Moving then to Councillor item 12A, which is actually on the agenda itself, recommendations from overview and scrutiny panels. And the chair of the internal overview and scrutiny panel is unable to be with us tonight. Councillor London.
Yes, Chair, he's twisted his ankle, so he did send me a note and said just stay at home and put your foot up and get it better. So basically, this report is not recommending anything to us, but I would like to thank the OSP for looking at it, and I look forward to their further consideration and possible recommendations coming forward. I think we're all aware that the voids are running at too high a level and action needs to be taken to reduce them. The main problem seems to be the old complexes, which were fit for purpose when they were first built and very good. However, then since changing expectations and regulations have made the units difficult to let, and in some cases I suspect that the demolition and rebuild would be the best option and probably the cheapest option, especially if we can use the modular, the NBBC type process for this. So that's basically it. I'm going to think more to say until the OSP comes back and tells us what their further consideration to make to.
Thank you, Councillor Longden. I do have a speaker, Councillor Conway.
Thank you. My last item of the night. I've always taken an interest in void properties because it's effectively a waste in the system, and there always will be voids, but it's how we're going to manage the numbers down. So information is really important. I think one of the key things out of the OSC's recommendation is a list of where the void properties are, and actually start to actually do a bit of looking at it. I don't know if unfortunately I'm not allowed on the internal scrutiny, I'm on the external. But I think it's really useful to have a bit of a look at these voids. It all seems to be in the sheltered, supported, all that sort of bits of housing. And I agree that some might need to be demolished, but places like Redhaven Court and the Chimes, we actually need to just try and get them advertised more. I even radically suggested advertising on eBay or something, just not necessarily because that would be successful, but just to get the publicity that we've actually got very nice community in places like Redhaven Court. We've got bedsits that are very hard to let, but if we actually put the price right, and actually even had a January sale on them, or just think out the box. So actually, rather than have an empty bedsit at Red Haddon Court, we had it used by someone of an appropriate age to boost the community. Because it's lovely going there, they all you have tea, and it's a lovely community, but they're losing people. They have about 7 voids when I last went up there, and it's a massive pity. And I think a January sale, just do something wacky, because it's like you said about the empty shops. Is it better to have Poundland paying £1 and paying his council their business rates? The voids in our complexes are the same. If we charged half rent for a year on one of these, but we had council tax off them, we might actually be in a beneficial position. Because we pay council tax on our voids. And as we keep getting reminded, the council only keeps 12% of that. So that's money going to the county council and the police. We're paying money, council tax, for an asset that's not being used. Thank you.
Thank you. Any points of clarification? And I thank you very much for your comments. It seems to me that there is no specific request to Cabinet to actually do anything, but you would welcome a further report in due course from the ONS back to Cabinet, because that would be a good idea.
Can I just respond to the councillor? It would be nice to actually do what you say, Councillor Conley, have a January sale and give them rent, half price rent. It might be nice for the people at Red Haddon Court, but then of course we've got all the other places that may then want to join in on the 50% rent reductions, and it will be a difficult one to actually get off the mark. But I take your point. But these, as I said when I introduced it, we've got big problems with changing expectations, particularly from older people who don't want to live in a bedsit, and the changing regulations which make most of them, or a lot of them, unsuitable for habitation. So therefore, we have to do something with them. We can't do anything with them, we just knock them down. I did suggest making them into sheds for people in the complexes, so that we could get away with not having anybody in there, but we could put the scooters in there, for example. But I don't think that's a practical idea at the moment. So it might be that we have to consider demolition and rebuild to make them fit for the 21st century.
Thank you. So we then move on to item 13, which is any other item